And good morning, all. Tony,
Good morning.
And I'm also going to introduce, if I may, the MEP Nikki Sinclaire.
Good morning, Nikki.
Hello. Good to have you on.
Thank you.
Now, you've launched a petition for a referendum. Let me say it right. You've launched a petition for a referendum on whether we should be part of the EU.
That's correct.
And
because obviously, what you're actually debating this morning, it's already been said that it wouldn't be allowed under European Union law. The mechanism is that when an organisation collects these 100,000 signatures and they're submitted, it then has to go through to a select committee. That's where this particular petition would fall, because obviously Parliament has no say in this because of our membership of the European Union. So, I launched when the coalition document was launched after the general election. They actually made this pledge. And one thing, can I just take a few seconds to read out a short paragraph of the coalition pledge on this issue?
Yeah.
Because there's an important bit that hasn't been mentioned. It quotes, "We will ensure that any petition that secures 100,000 signatures will be eligible for a formal debate in Parliament. The petition with the most signatures will enable members of the public to table a bill eligible to be voted on in Parliament." Okay, so my campaign to get a national debate on our membership of the European Union and a bind-in, we've actually got 93,000 signatures as of 5 p.m. last night. So we're in striking distance of this. I mean, people can help us over the edge by going to haveyoursay.eu. And
you're using me as a platform.
Well, I'm a politician and you're a broadcaster, you're a public service. but
it's not going to get through. It's not going to. Is this really about practically trying to get it through Parliament, or is it about just another plank in your general strategy of getting the public to talk about it?
Well, my strategy is that, my view represents in many, many polls the majority of the British people who want a debate, a referendum, or even leave the European Union.
The majority don't want to leave, though, do they?
No, that's not true. In every poll for the last 4 years, Nikki, it has clearly shown that the majority of people wish to leave the European Union. I mean, I think a BBC poll prior to the European elections showed that 86% of people wanted no further powers from the EU, and 62% actually want to leave. And that's a BBC poll that said that in 2009.
It doesn't matter who does the poll. It's not the people doing the poll. It's the people who are being asked.
Yes, but they're all scientific polls, aren't they? And, when I go out with my mobile surgery around the West Midlands, I have queues for people to sign this. There is such an annoyance, as been mentioned earlier, that all three parties have repeatedly promised referendums and they've never come to pass. And we need a national debate. And people can do that by signing haveyoursay.eu.
Do you think we are back to the Europe issue? This disconnect with democracy. Just before we take the travel, Nikki Sinclaire, do you think a time will come when we are detached from the European Union?
I think that's ever-growing. I mean, obviously with the financial situation, with cutbacks at home, the European Court of Human Rights, which is obviously separate from the EU, but because of the Charter of Fundamental Rights in Lisbon, we're ever more connected with the ECHR via our membership of the European Union, and decisions about human rights for, mass killers, etc. People are becoming far and far more remote from the European Union. And the European Union, I think Paul mentioned earlier, has instigated this kind of people's petition around the European Union, which was in the Lisbon Treaty. But they've made a whole mess. It's actually 7 countries, and they haven't worked out how they're going to do this yet. And this is almost 2 years after the Lisbon Treaty has come into force. So they have a real democratic deficit. They don't know how to relate to its citizens. If you look at the last European Union election, not just in the UK, but across Europe, less and less people turned out. The European Union has a serious problem, and the Euro's lacking credibility. And the European Union, I think the people have just, I think they just want a national debate. And yes, I come from a very Eurosceptic position, but I actually think it's essential for us to have a debate. This halfway house that we're currently in is actually worse, and I think that there'll be.
But we have a debate. We have debates every day.
No, but we don't. But there's no end to a debate, is there?
So you don't want a debate. You want the result that you feel is the right
one.
one.
Well, of course, like me or anyone else.
That's what you mean when you say you want a debate.
Would like us to be fully in there, but let's have a national debate.
Okay.